I'm Tessa and welcome to Wannabesmallholders. This week I shall be risking the frosts and putting some of my tomatoes into the main bed. I'm hoping that they'll be okay. I'll also be potting on all my tomato plants into larger pots and putting them in the greenhouse, which is unheated, so hopefully they'll be acclimatising a bit for outside. And I'll also be putting a support structure around my broad beans, because sometimes it can get quite windy and I don't want them to fall over. So today I'm going to be repotting all my tomato plants. I sowed them at the end of January at the same time as the chilli seeds, and as you can see, a chilli doesn't grow as fast as a tomato, and I should learn, because every year I sow my tomato seeds at the same time as my chilies and they end up kind of a bit long and leggy like this. I have to admit I have left them a little longer than usual because the weather was so bad this year. So I'm going to, normally I would take a select few tomatoes and I would plant them 3 in one of these, my planters that I've added extra rigidity to, I can't even say the word, and they would go in the greenhouse. However, compost is a bit of a premium at the moment, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to repot them all into either the long ones or the short fat plant pots. Now I prefer the long ones because as they're a bit wobbly, if I can pop them in here, it helps give a little bit of extra support to them. I'll also, because they're now starting to, in the case of this one, which is a Provençal tomato, you can see they're actually beginning to flower. So I need to make sure I get them going. And this one, unfortunately, I can't remember what they all are, because although I did label the seeds when I sowed them, I didn't keep the labels after I repotted them into these plants here. But you can see I've got to take all these little bits here out. That's to stop any lateral plant bits coming out, and makes the plant stronger and makes sure that I'm only going to keep the flower bud bits. So that's what I'm going to do today. This is pretty much a temporary measure anyway for quite a few of them, because once I'm sure that the risk of frost has passed, I'll be putting quite a few of these out into the ground outside. Note to self, don't sow tomatoes so early next year. I forgot, I sowed 4 different types. This one's called a Baltic Star, and you can see it's a lot shorter than the other ones, even though it was sown at the same time. They've been specially bred. You can see it's also fairly sturdy. They've been specially bred to, well, Baltic Star, that kind of gives you a clue in the name, doesn't it? To be in a more northern, colder climate. They're kind of dwarfing. I grew them last year. I think I probably need to thin them out a bit, but they did fine. They just, you know, they were very stocky, and they did produce some tomatoes, but they seem to be quite slow in ripening. But I, you know, thought I'd give them a try again this year. Never know. I tie everything into a loose figure 8. So between the plant and the stick, there's a crossover of the twine, which I think helps mean that it gets some movement. It allows it to grow a bit and it doesn't squash it. So as it grows, it's easy to move. I think that's why you do it anyway. So I've potted on quite a few tomatoes and a couple of chilies. I've puddled them in. I'm going to leave them in the greenhouse from now on, even though it's turned out to be much warmer than I was expecting. Normally I would put horticultural grit in the bottom of the trays, because that helps water retention, and it means then that they're not sitting in water but they can spread their roots through the horticultural grit. I couldn't get any horticultural grit. I'm going to put them on sand in the hopes that might kind of help. At least I'll notice if it's drying out in there. So that's probably what I'll do. So today I'm doing a job I've been putting off for some time, which is to tidy up. This is actually a strawberry bed. It's difficult to see the strawberries under there. There are lots of weeds. I did originally plant them on ridges, and then last year I did try and take the runners and put them into little pots, but then I forgot to move the little pots, so there's little pots in there as well, and they've probably rooted right through. And then I've got these strawberries here that I grew from seed off a strawberry that I thought was really tasty, so I'm going to put them in as well. It's going to take quite a while, and it's not a job I've been looking forward to, but it's going to look great by the end. So yesterday my plan was to weed the strawberry bed, and I realised within about 30 seconds of starting that actually I was going to have to take everything out and then redo it, because to try and separate out the weeds, and there were a lot of them, from the strawberries was pretty impossible. So I have dug everything out, and I've discovered I've got about 300 strawberry plants. So I'm going to dig over here, put in a couple of bags of compost and dig in a bit of bone meal and chicken manure, and then I'm going to make little raised areas where I'm going to plant the strawberries in the top, and then I'm going to put some straw or something in between each of them, hopefully the strawberries can flop onto and not go mouldy. Okay, so I have now dug some trenches and made the mounds. The trenches are very deep, and that's mostly because I'm expecting quite a lot of the soil to wash down into them when they rain, or in this instance when I water them. So I'm going to try and water them in the hopes I can fix them in place for a bit, and then they're wet and watered, ready for me to start planting some of the strawberries into it. I'll probably put a little bit more compost on the top when I plant them, but I'm not going to make a whole load of effort because I've got an awful lot of plants, and I'm sure that they'll be fine. So I've decided I'm going to actually go through and sort the strawberries that I've taken out of the strawberry patch here before I try and sow them, so I can evaluate them, see how healthy they seem to look. This one seems to be quite good in terms of very good root structure, but I will trim those off a bit. I've got kind of a strawberry soup here and a very excited dog. Hello, Rocket. Don't drink that. Thank you. So I shall go through, I'll count them all up, see how many I've got, and then decide on which ones I'm actually going to sow. I suspect that there'll be quite a few really good ones still left over, so I'll put them in a bucket and put them at the end of the road with a little sign saying, help yourself, plant now, strawberries by July, I should imagine, certainly August. So things like this, which has got really quite a good root structure on it, just to encourage it and also to make it easier to plant, I'm just going to cut these bits off. So I'll lay them out, then I'll assess them, then I'll count them all up, and then I'll decide on how many I can plant on each row and how many are going to be left over or put into pots. So these are the strawberry plants that I think are probably a year or 2 years old. I'm going to stick a hole with a dibber, shove them in, put the soil around them a bit more, and then move on to the next one. Because these are quite high mounds, I'm actually going to stick some in the sides as well, just because I've got so many, and strawberries are very shallow rooted, so hopefully it'll stop the little hillocks from tumbling down into the valleys in between. So I'm going to put all of these in here. I'll use the next ones in the next couple of furrows, and then I'll be putting some straw in between each one. Well, they are strawberries. So I'm just going to get stuck in because it's taken me an awful lot longer today to do this than I had planned. So I'm trying to decide whether or not I can risk putting some of my tomato plants out in this bed here, on the grounds that they're already rather large. I need to plant them out somewhere, and I'm limited because I don't have a great deal in the way of compost. So normally I would put them into compost bags in the greenhouse and at the back of the house there against the wall, but I need lots of compost, and compost is in a bit of short supply at the moment. So my plan is to fill this bed with tomatoes, and basically find every spare place that I can and stick a tomato in it. But it's only the 6th of April and I'm a bit concerned that it might be a bit cold still, and kill my tomato plants, but I am going to risk putting a few out just in case. I've already raked this bed over. I did put a whole load of organic material in this last year when I dug out the tree stumps, so I know that in there's quite a lot of organic material, so hopefully the tomatoes will have lots to eat. Also, while I'm out here, I noticed that my quince tree probably needs a bit more support, so I'm going to ask my husband if he can find a stick and help me support this, because it's a lovely tree. It's quite lovely. So I've got this bit in already. I just need a cross piece to go in across there, just to keep it stable, and then I can loosen off this one and this one here, hopefully, and give it a bit more support. So that's my quince tree, that's my cherry tree, this will all be tomatoes. Okay, so this may not look like the most beautiful contraption on the planet, but I'm hoping this little structure here will enable me to keep my broad beans from falling over later on in the season. It's not beautiful, it certainly doesn't feel particularly sturdy, but in comparison to what I normally have, I'm hoping this will make all the difference. So I'm just doing some sort of a frame here to then put string between the canes and then give some support to my broad beans. Obviously it's not really going to be very safe having bits of cane sticking out all over the place, particularly when John cuts the grass or I'm chasing after rockets in the garden, so I'm going to trim them down a little bit. Also, we only have half a bed of broad beans this year. Normally I got another one started off, but I just didn't have a chance this year, the weather was so awful. So we've just got one, which is why I've got to try and protect it very, very well. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, please subscribe to this channel. Put a comment below. I'm quite sure that you've got some comments on my interesting strawberries going on over there. Let me know what you think. Thanks very much. See you soon.